And yes, I know you'd like to blame all of that on George Bush, of whom I am no fan either. But allow me to remind you of one tiny little important detail everybody seems to forget. In the last 8 months since you took office, you have spent more money than every other administration in the history of the United States combined. What you have done to our children is immoral and likely illegal. Speaking of morals, you recently brought the idea of morals to the debate on health care. You want to talk about morals? Let's have the discussion. You have systematically left morals and religion out of every discussion until now. You and those like you have warned us that morals and religion have no place in public discussions or on government agendas. Yet suddenly, when it suits you, you use morals and religion to justify the health care bill you want passed on the basis of morality. We will not allow you to pick and choose when morals are allowed or not allowed in discussions. You do not make that decision. We do. And be advised that if you make the decision to add morals to the healthcare discussion, we will add it to the abortion discussion. You then said, makes more sense to build on what works than build a whole new system. You then emphatically, with authority you do not have, stated, the time for bickering is over. The time for debate is over. No, sir. You do not arrogantly dictate to us when the debate ends. We pay your salary, we elect you to office, and we will dictate to you when the discussion ends. Need I remind you that America is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. You are not ultimately the government. We are. During the speech, you said you were creating a new insurance exchange, that you would give the American people as a group more leverage since they would be buying as a group. You implied that we'd be getting the same health care that Congress gets. That it was time we got what you got. But this was a ruse. You were comparing the fact that you buy in as a group and the fact that we could buy in as a group. You made the intentional implication that we would be getting the same insurance as you. However, the only comparison, by your own admission, between what Congress has and what the American people would get under this plan is the fact that we'd both be buying as a group, but not from the same providers. We now lay this demand at your feet, Mr. President. Whatever health care bill you ultimately pass, you and every member of Congress must also take that plan as yours. You then left the health care arena and actually had the audacity to dive into micromanaging our money. You said, and I quote, "For those who cannot afford the insurance, we will provide tax credits, the size of which is based on your need." Exactly who will be determining the size of our need, Mr. President? Which government agency or committee or bureaucrat will you assign to handle our financial matters, to make the decisions as to which citizens are blessed enough to fall into the bracket of those you consider worthy of tax credits so they can afford the insurance you are forcing us to take? And it isn't true, Mr. President, that isn't it true, Mr. President, that the lowest on the totem poles don't pay taxes anyway? So exactly how is a tax credit going to help them? You said it would take 4 years for the insurance exchange you're setting up to take its position. In the meantime, for those who cannot get insurance today because of pre-existing conditions, we will provide it for you today. In other words, you then said that this was a good idea when John McCain announced it within his campaign, and it's a good idea now. Are you kidding me? You're telling me that you're basing this on John McCain? You said it would take 4 years for the insurance exchange you are setting up to take its position. In the meantime, for those who cannot get insurance today because of pre-existing conditions, we will provide it today. You then said this was a good idea when John McCain announced it in his campaign, and it's a good idea now. Republicans, this next sentence is for you. This is why you cannot just vote for your side of the ticket anymore. By going the party line, you ended up with John McCain. Need I say more? Back to you, Mr. President. You said this regarding the public option when you expanded on how you'd pay for this mess. No one would be forced to choose it. You said the insurance companies are complaining that they cannot compete if you get into the insurance business. You said they'd be right if it was being subsidized by the public. But you say it's not being subsidized by the public, that it's being subsidized by savings from other programs. Again, that's our money. When you find somewhere to save it, give it back. You then went on to say, the program has to stand on its own and cover its own costs. Quote, but by avoiding overhead, eaten up by profits, administration, executive salaries, it could provide a good deal to consumers. It could provide a good deal to consumers? You aren't even convinced your own proposal is a good deal. But even more important in that stew of ignorance is your assertion that the government, unlike private business, doesn't have administrative costs like CEOs and executive salaries. Are you actually implying that there would be no management, no executives, no direction, and no leadership? You're kidding, right? The truth is, like every other government program, this one is no different. It will be top-heavy with millions of dollars wasted on bureaucrats managing it. Also in that stew of ignorance is your assertion that one form of overhead is profits. Again, I quote, but by avoiding overhead eaten up by profits, administration, executive salaries, blah, blah, blah. Mr. President, you have never in your life held a real job, and you have certainly never run a business. I've been running my own business for 15 years. Allow me to illuminate something for you. Profits are not a part of overhead. Profits are something you derive if your total cash flow is greater than your overhead. So, Mr. President, if you don't even know what overhead is, how in the hell do you expect us to believe you can accomplish any of this massive effort? An important moment in your speech was when you arrogantly shoved off those of us with legitimate concerns that you were trying to take over healthcare. You actually had the audacity to laugh under your breath and smile when you mentioned this. Then, after laughing us off, you said, 3 basic goals for your reform. Number 1, stability and security of those who have insurance. Number 2, provide insurance for those who don't. And number 3, slow growth of healthcare costs. Then said, nothing in the plan will require you to change the doctor you have. Before I comment on your goals, you also said this about the requirements of the plan. Insurance companies will be required to provide, at no extra charge, routine checkups, doctor visits, etc. And then said, that's why everyone will be required to have health insurance, like auto insurance is required. And then said, likewise, businesses will be required to provide health insurance. And then said, under this plan, it will be illegal for insurance companies to drop you or water down coverage when you get sick. They will no longer be able to place some arbitrary cap on your insurance. And under this plan, it would be illegal for insurance companies to deny coverage due to pre-existing conditions. You then went on to say, and these are your words, quote, I will make sure no government bureaucrat gets in the way. You will? Under whose authority? Under what power? Under which article of the Constitution will you take up the charge and handle this, Mr. President? Mr. President, if you are not trying to take over health care, then who the hell are you to set the goals for the insurance industry? And if you are not trying to tell us what to do, and you are not trying to push us around, and you're truly not trying to take over healthcare, then why is all of this required? Why are you setting requirements? If you're not trying to control everything, then why are you telling us what we will and will not do? And if you are not trying to run things, then why do you say, I will do this and I will do that? Let me be crystal clear about something, sir. You have neither the power nor the authority to act in any way at any time on things which are outside of the Constitution. And everything you described in your speech is outside the constitutional purview of all branches of government, not just the president. The Founding Fathers promised equal rights, not equal things. They specifically forbade the federal government from providing for the poor, the needy, and the elderly. They were explicit about that. They were clear that the state government and charitable organizations were to handle these matters. And until the early 1900s, the states and charities handled it way better than Medicare or Medicaid has done. They were never broke. They were never loaded with bureaucrats, and the elderly were always taken care of. As I close, allow me to play this audio for you that I heard from the speech.
I'm not the first president to take up this cause, but I am determined to be the last.
That, Mr. President, is a demand that we intend to comply with at the next election. And I'm warning any of you who vote for any form of health care that has reform in its eyes like the ones you proposed this last weekend. We are coming. We will not forget. And the election is not that far away. We are coming for your jobs. Stick around. Your call.